Welcome to Wrasslin Raw! Alright, you're listening to Wrasslin Raw, the podcast that takes you back to when Raw became war and Attitude ruled. Thank you for joining us. You're here with Ryan Arico.
Did you guys ever realize the United States is shaped like one big giant toilet bowl?
Joe Giammatteo.
I got a lot of things on my mind, Girth Brooks.
I'm the one and only Jason Bartlett. We're going to examine WWE history, one episode of Raw is War at a time. But first, just a brief apology to our listeners. We had a gap in our release schedule last week. I was dealing with a sudden onset health issue there, so it prevented us from recording, and my bad. I'll take the
completely your fault.
Full blunt of the responsibility.
Was that an exhibition match you had with Ahmed Johnson that maybe injured your back region?
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. It's a miracle that I survived.
You and the Sultan were laying next to each other in a hospital bed.
And Double J comes.
Yeah.
No, the insider scoop on that is that I'm having conflicts with a coworker here at the podcast, and I just did not want to be on air with them at the same time.
We're recording in completely different times and just mashing these together. All three of us don't get along at this point.
The magic of editing.
Chunk of hair thrown on the desk.
What kind of place are you running around here? But also, listeners, I wanted to give you a heads up. As many of you know, there are changes going on in the world of Twitter. One of those being the name that I refuse to call it because it's the stupidest fucking rebranding ever. But I digress.
Not even X-Pac wanted to create an X account.
It's probably one of the stupidest fucking things I've ever seen in my life as far as business choices go, but that's neither here nor there. The real meat of the matter here is that they have also decided to change some of their API settings. And, long story short, what that means is that we can no longer publish our new episodes on Twitter as a platform. And with that decision, Twitter is no longer useful to this podcast in the least bit. It's been a long time coming. We kept it around just because, we do get a little bit of fan interaction. We've interacted with wrestlers on Twitter before, RVD, Sabu, a couple others. But if we can't publish our episodes there, then what the fuck good are you, Twitter? Really?
Yeah.
So after you hear this recording, I'm going to probably give one more thanks for the memories, peace out on Twitter, and then we will be deleting our account. You are more than welcome to track us down on Instagram. We're at Wrasslin Raw Podcast. We're on Facebook. I just created a Mastodon account, not Vader, but a Mastodon account.
Mastodon.
Yeah, it's a open source kind of, I guess Twitter uses a lot of their programs. It's open source.
I feel like that's been around a long time, Mastodon.
Yeah, I'm experimenting with it. It's in its infant stages. I've already got more fan interaction on Mastodon than I have on Twitter, though. You ingrateful bastards.
Well, it's because the X doesn't like to give views to people unless they already have millions of followers. So,
well, that, and I don't want to have to pay to read what Chris Jericho says. So
you can hear him singing on Instagram if you really want to.
If anything, I should be getting paid to listen to.
I will miss his feuds with Sebastian Bach on Twitter, though.
That is true. That is true. But really, in the end, guys, a Twitter account gets deleted and nothing of real value was lost. Like I said, I'll give you one more warning before it's done, and then that's it. Go find us on Instagram. We love interacting with our listeners.
Or go Mastodon it up with Vader.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. Get a shot of the Master Balls while you're over there. All right. In this episode of Wrasslin Raw, we're going to be talking about the Raw that aired on July 21st, 1997. This Raw was recorded at the Metro Center in Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada, and features Vince McMahon, Jim Ross, and Jerry the King Lawler on commentary. Are you guys ready?
I'm ready.
Ready.
All right, then. Let's get into it. We started this off with a really poignant juxtaposition of ideologies in the beginning, tastefully done in black and white, with Jim Ross posing the question that between being despised in America and loved in Canada, these superstars, aren't we American fans just the same as Canadian fans in our positive feelings for our heroes, our negative feelings for our antagonists? But they didn't get too philosophical on us, though. That was capped off.
Yeah, but we live in a toilet bowl.
Yeah, and I mean, we got plenty of footage of Canadians shit-talking America on that, so...
The best one there, right at the beginning, though, this guy shit-talking America while wearing a Carolina Panthers hat.
Apparently, over the weekend, Bret Hart issued an open challenge to a flag match, whatever the hell that is. The insinuation there is that something will maybe be decided during this episode.
When did he issue that challenge again?
I got the impression that it was at Shotgun Saturday Night, but they never really specified. They just said over the weekend.
Okay. All right. It was not last week on Raw, basically.
No.
Is what okay.
No, definitely not. Yeah,
right.
Definitely not last week.
Shawn Michaels is in the arena tonight. Commentary talked about him instead of the tag team graphic that was up on the screen. That got completely ignored. And that patriotic flag thing, that's going to happen later. But first, we're going to go to our first match of the night. Speaking of, Vader with Paul Bearer defeats Ken Shamrock by countout in 7 minutes and 2 seconds. Man, I had a sense of deja vu that was just heightened by the extensive video footage of the last match these guys had against each other. I was happy to see Kenny back in his red trunks. That was good. No more fucking black for him. We got a pre-recorded promo from Ken, complete with a can of dog food to put over that ridiculous SummerSlam stipulation with the British Bulldog.
Good plug for pedigree there. It was like a Wayne's World.
Yeah.
Well, that's the best, the King was saying. Once everything got down to the ring, I noticed that Paul Bearer, he's getting more and more blonde as the weeks go on. That's good to see. We're getting closer and closer to him rutting with the mama. Unfortunately, you could also tell Vader was talking Kenny through this match, not just because you could clearly see Vader talking Ken through it, but because the majority of this at the start was Kenny on his back and Vader just standing there, mastodonning it up. That's how you could tell it was all his idea. By the time Shamrock was ready to reverse Vader's powerbomb, an attempt to rally, Vader was sucking wind visibly there. Something that I did enjoy noting was how physical Paul Bearer got in this match. At one point, he was hitting Ken with his shoe. At another, he was pulling Ken off of Vader's leg during a submission attempt. I loved Paul freaking out in fear. That was a great visual. And he even bumped to the floor for Ken Shamrock. That was pretty fucking cool, too. Vader, he did take a hit to the old mast balls here. That was right before JR threw out that fucking awesome catchphrase, "I guess it's knuckle up time for Shamrock." And man, it sounded like there was a gun to his head. But then, out of nowhere, the British Bulldog snuck in while the referee was distracted to give Shamrock a very, very, very protected power slam on the steel entry ramp. And that, my friends, is how Ken Shamrock lost his first match in the WWF. Well, guys, I mean, I don't know what else to say. This was a typical Vader match against an opponent that's still relatively green. Ryan, what'd you think of it?
Yeah, you know, the first time we saw these guys together at that pay-per-view, we thought that they put together at least a halfway decent match. And I was hoping, you know, I was optimistic that we'd at least get something close to that. But it started off and, you know, shitty right from the beginning. We have Shamrock giving a promo. He uses the stupid knuckle up time catchphrase, followed by invoking our favorite dog food stipulation. I mean, it was just a loss all around, that promo. And really, the match kind of stayed there. Vader doesn't do anything. Him and Ken, they look a little sloppy at the beginning here. At one point, Ken tries to go for like a leg sweep and then into a submission, but he misses Vader's legs and they just kind of fumble around a little bit. It really didn't go off all that well. The best part of the match was Paul Bearer. Paul Bearer did a good job. When he started hitting Shamrock with the shoe, I'm immediately thinking to myself, really, who hit someone someone with a shoe. And then the ending, I wasn't crazy about either. You know, Ken gets his first loss by, I understand that he's going up against Bulldog at the pay-per-view, but I don't know. It just kind of made the end of this anticlimactic, just like the rest of the match. So yeah, kind of a loser here.
Yeah, a lot of good points there. This was a pay-per-view match a couple months ago, right?
Yep.
I mean, I'm kind of glad this time it was used for Bulldog interference, basically, because, I mean, who really cares about this match? Because they already had it. Vader had a lot of injuries from that first match, so this was probably a situation where they had to be a little more careful, so that didn't happen again. I popped hard when Jerry Lawler asked if Paul Bearer's shoes were Bruno Magli's. Do you guys remember?
Yes, the OJ. OJ reference, yeah. Vince went, well, we're not going to go there.
Yeah. Well, he already did, Vince. Yeah. So, yeah, that was funny. Basically, like I said, it was kind of just used for that Bulldog interference to get that story going.
Yeah, I couldn't help but think during this, we've talked in the past couple weeks about how they're trying to get some new guys over. Taka Michinoku was the thing that really came to mind. And you had him losing his first two matches before finally getting a win. And here you've got Ken Shamrock, who has won, I want to say, 4 matches up until getting his first loss.
Does that include the exhibition?
I wasn't including the exhibition, no. I was including just Rockabilly. I'm imagining him beating Rockabilly 4 times. But, I mean, you know, there's a world of difference between Taka Michinoku and Ken Shamrock, admittedly, but just such two drastically different ways of storytelling, you know, building the story around a newcomer. So that was my big takeaway from that. I was glad to be, or at least feel like I was learning things here, because that whole flag match thing that they talked about earlier, that had been a little confusing to me. And here, after this match, we got an on-screen graphic for that flag match, and that actually helped me kind of get a better understanding of what the hell is happening. So this is going to be a 6-man tag match, and it's going to be the Hart Foundation on one side. That's Brett, Owen, and the Bulldog. And then they had 3 unnamed opponents for the other side. This was an open challenge that as of yet had not been answered. They did not give us any kind of indication here at this point how exactly the flags was supposed to play into this stipulation.
I was thinking it was going to be more along the lines of like capture the flag, where you wanted to get your opponent's flag.
Right.
But, you know.
Right. Well, that would kind of make sense, and we'll talk about what we did end up getting later, but they were just dropping all of this. They were not even dropping, dribbling out details on this match over the course of the episode, and we had really no idea what was going on. That whole thing was followed by some more knuckleheads outside the arena there talking shit on America. You northern bastards, you. And then, holy shit, a video package for Baracus coming to the WWF. That was a fucking trip. That dude was talking in such a thick, I think, German accent. I couldn't understand any of it. Did either of you guys get anything out of that?
I got nothing.
No.
Okay. While we were getting that, Vince was getting in the ring to announce the Hart Foundation down to the ring. The American members of the Hart Foundation suspiciously absent from all of this Canadian circle jerking. And the crowd exploded for Brett, so much so that he had to yell loudly over the PA to be heard. And from that point on, Brett had this crowd in the palm of his hand. His delivery and timing were perfect. He was giving space for the crowd to react to what he was saying. And I was into it. I was enjoying it. And JR came back with, "It won't be like this next week in Pittsburgh." And I fucking popped. But a US sucks chant got going. That led Brett to highlight that his flag match challenge hadn't been answered. So the Hart Foundation starts calling out superstars. Brett calls out The Undertaker. The Bulldog gets on the mic and he highlights how he just interfered in a match. And he was quite happy about that, being a bad person to have done that. He cheated somebody out of a fair fight, but he got cheered for it by the hypocritical Canadian fans. He wants Shamrock back out here. Bulldog hasn't had enough of Shamrock yet. Owen wanted Austin. And Owen went on about something about perverts and sucking toes.
Yeah.
I don't really want to dwell on that all that much because the glass breaks. Stone Cold comes out to say, "This ain't God's country, this is a living hell," and I fucking popped. Bottom line there, Austin accepts the challenge for the flag match later. He had no additional words from The Undertaker or Ken Shamrock when the Harts finally leave the ring. After that, our first full video package advertising SummerSlam, highlighting the match card, the histories between the competitors. It's good to see that. Commentary was speculating that we might see Dude Love tonight, but that we will definitely be seeing DOA versus Los Boricuas at SummerSlam. And I took back one of those pops. God damn it. The great news that came on the back of that, however, was that DOA has been temporarily suspended, so no Crush tonight, guys.
3 for 3 highlight.
Except for the replay footage of that vicious assault on one of DOA's
Low
motorcycles. Complete with Crush overacting and underconvincing us with his outrage. And that was it for this segment. There was a lot to talk about mixed in here. Ryan, what you got on it?
So the Hart Foundation coming out, I agree. Brett, when he started, man, he had this crowd riled up. And, when they started chanting U.S. sucks, being from the U.S., it still just felt good, Just being able to have someone like Brett to be able to get an entire arena that riled up. It's a great sight to see.
Yeah.
And I thought everyone really did a good job except for Owen. For the first time, I think maybe ever, I don't know where the fuck Owen was going with this promo. It was pretty bizarre. Maybe he had a couple shots backstage before they came out. Austin does a good job of just coming out real quick, drops his, living hell statement, and then we move on. But really good little Hart Foundation segment with the crowd, just a little veer off there with Owen. And then learning about the disciples of the Honey Dipper and Savio's gang. When I heard that they were suspended, I was ecstatic. And then we hear that they have a SummerSlam match, and that we got this entire pathetic garage brawl in its entirety, and it didn't look any more realistic the second time around. So I don't know why they wanted to show a replay of it, but they did.
Could be 5-star match coming up. You don't know. Yeah, off night for Owen. Not very good on his part. But Brett continues to amaze us. This time period here, him cutting promos is just always great. Most of the lines are probably fed to him before he goes out there, but he does a great job at delivering, allowing the crowd to react. Just everything he says. He knows when he's in Canada, and he knows his audience. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
It's always great seeing him during this time period doing in-ring interviews.
Not to mention when JR, let us in on that we're going to be in Pittsburgh next week. I'm popping already about the famous Pittsburgh comment from Brett. So I can't wait to hear it.
Probably my favorite thing that's ever been said on a wrestling show ever.
All right. Let's get this next one out of the way. It's our next match. Brian Christopher defeats Brian Walsh by pinfall in 3 minutes and 53 seconds. Ugh. I love how the ring announcer there in the ring highlighted to the entire crowd that Brian Walsh is formerly Canadian but chose to move to Rhode Island.
Wow.
That was perfect.
Yes.
I guess on Shotgun Saturday Night, Brian Christopher and the King gave Scott Putski a pile driver into a chair. Hopefully Putski won't be back after that. Brian Walsh was like a poor man's Bob Backlund. He had red trunks, he was pale as hell, he was not exciting in the least bit. Basically everything that Bob Backlund is, except younger. At one point, somehow, a little Canadian flag ended up in Brian Christopher's mouth. I didn't see how that had happened, but one of the strings got caught in his teeth, and it was just hanging there while he was working and flopping around, and it was pretty funny.
The best part of the match.
Yeah, really. This coming Sunday, the WWF's going to have a house show in Erie, Pennsylvania, but I was unable to find the match card for that event.
Maybe it didn't happen.
No, it happened. It was the one blank in the list of house shows. I was so pissed off.
It was that good of a show.
Yeah.
No, I'm still thinking it probably never happened. Knowing Erie, it could have snowed in July.
Yeah.
Very true.
Yep.
But it's okay, because next week we're going to have Raw down in Pittsburgh. And I had to note here, I always love how much Jim Ross puts over Pittsburgh. Every fucking chance he gets, still to this day. I mean,
doing it for his wife.
Yep. And his podcasts, when he's on AEW, just always putting over Pittsburgh. It's a good man, that JR.
One of the greatest American cities out there.
Brian Walsh, his corner punches on Brian Christopher looked fucking terrible. And that was it. We got the pin and moved on to something else that was extremely disturbing. But before we'll get to that, first, Joe, please, what'd you have on this match?
That was it. Were your words there that they really rang out? I don't have anything here. I guess, I mean, this is maybe the best that Brian Christopher has looked in the ring so far, but that's not saying much, right? So
Yeah.
That's all I have.
Brian Walsh is another jobber that, honestly, I was thinking maybe to do Jobber of the Week for, but there just really wasn't enough information to find about him to make any compelling Jobber of the Week segment. I mean, he started wrestling in the late 80s, had like a dozen or so matches in the WWF between 93 and 98, and then completely disappears from the wrestling world in 98. So other than him just being a pathetic, pale wrestler, there's not much more that I could really add in to give him a Jobber of the Week. And to me, the best part of the entire match had nothing to do with the two wrestling, but it was when Jerry the King Lawler corrects JR, saying kings don't have kids, they have heirs. And I thought that was just a great line about Brian Christopher. And I also wanted to point out, Bartlett, you briefly pointed it out, but the reason Brian Walsh never had a substantial wrestling career, when he climbed the turnbuckle for that 10 count, they were some of the weakest punches I've seen in a long time. They looked really bad. So, it's no surprise he didn't make it anywhere, and it's no surprise this was a bit of a stinker.
Yeah. Yeah, best thing he probably ever did was make it out of Canada. All right. God damn it. Let's talk about this shit next. The next image on our screens was the fucking Commandant.
Your boy.
Mm-hmm.
The Commandant. Oh, shut your whore mouth.
Christmas gift.
Yep.
Apparently, the Commandant and the Truth Commission are going to have their live debut in Pittsburgh next week.
Is that a re-debut?
Well, we got pre-recorded video of them on our screens here, but they're going to be live and in action in Pittsburgh next week. They did just a really, they had the Commandant talking, which did no favors for anybody anywhere, but they did like a sweeping kind of real quick view of the Truth Commission themselves, and they looked a lot like the Oddities, but before the Commandant transitioned to Luna Vachon. I mean, I'm sure we're probably going to get tons of great matches out of them here soon in the future, but not too excited about the Commandant. And then, just when I thought things couldn't get worse, Coliseum Home Video took us on a flashback to In Your House 2 years ago, and we got a close-up of Todd Pettingzoo's vomit-inducing mullet, and fucking Stephanie Wyand.
Yeah, what a callback there.
Yeah.
The whole 2.5 weeks that she had a job at the WWF.
This was footage of them calling the winner of that house giveaway that they did. Naturally, when the people on the other end of the line found out they were talking to Todd Pettingzoo, they started screaming incoherently, which is exactly what I would do, too, if I found out Todd Pettingzoo was trying to get a hold of me. But hey, speaking of mind-numbing dipshits, Sable was up next with Mark Marrow, of course, and I say that as like little tiny subtext underneath the word Sable. Sable with Mark Marrow. She was trying to do the Vanna White thing with all of that cash in the Undertaker's casket. She failed at it. It was terrible. After that, JR very nicely sets up a video retrospective. And in that, you should hear me saying a whole bunch of recycled footage from previous episodes of Raw with the goal of explaining exactly who Dude Love is. This, was just a regular video package to try to introduce us more to the character of Dude Love, build him as a character a little more. My favorite line from Vince's narration of all of that was, "The price of success was disfigurement." That was just extremely long. It ended with Dude Love dancing in the ring with those groupies, which was a great way to end it. Earlier today, Steve Austin gave us some pre-recorded comments about Mankind, Dude Love, whoever. Austin still doesn't want a partner, but Dude Love has proved he can get the job done. Once that was over, we got some more past footage to remind us that the Godwins are heels. The Godwins are going to meet the Legion of Doom at SummerSlam. That was followed by a pre-recorded promo from the Legion of Doom. Very, very LOD, as they usually are. This finished up with Hawk saying, "Well, I've been slopped, and I've been slop-dropped." And that the Godwins would probably try to break Animal's neck if he had one, which made me pop. And that was it, man. Just a lot to unpack in this mid-match segment. We had the Truth Commission. We had Stephanie fucking Wyand. We had 45 minutes of the history of Dude Love. Joe, what'd you think about all of it?
Okay. The Commandant is exciting. The Truth... The Truth Commission, I don't really remember them. I remember that Kurgan guy.
Yeah.
He was the one that looked familiar.
I think there's a reason you don't remember him.
I think so too. And there's going to be a little change with the Truth Commission. I'm not going to reveal what it is. It's because it's not that exciting. And
I'm pretty sure I know what it is, but yes.
Yeah.
And also agree, not very exciting.
Yeah. Sable is still ripping off Pam Anderson's barbed wire gimmick. She's still doing that pretty well. Dude Love, did we need the entire story and replay from last week? I feel like it kind of ruins the shine a little bit from just a week ago.
2 hours to fill, pal.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know if I like that, but hey, whatever. Pre-recorded comments from Steve Austin were very pre-recorded. Again, that just came off as filler. LOD promo was pretty funny. There were a couple good lines there. We broke your neck, but we did it fair and square. Animal tells us that SummerSlam is in New York City, but it's completely not, right? Isn't it in Detroit or somewhere? Or I forget.
I don't know. I haven't been...
Let me look here. SummerSlam 97 was... Okay, East Rutherford, New Jersey, so close enough, I guess.
All right,
not New York City. We broke your neck by accident the last time was another good line, so that was funny, I guess.
I don't really have anything to add about the Commandant, petting zoo. I'll start with the Dude Love thing. I mean, I did enjoy right before they went to the extremely long Dude Love video. There was someone in the crowd holding a sign that said, "Dude Love, the real boy toy." I like that one. But I guess they just had a lot of time to fill because this was altogether, I mean, the Dude Love story alone, 53 minutes. And then you add in 10 minutes of the other stuff before it, and it was almost an entire hour devoted to this filler segment. I enjoy them putting Mick Foley over, and I think really that was the only thing that came out of me is Vince doing the voiceover. It really seems like he's, turned the page on Mick Foley. If anyone out there, if you know the backstory on his being accepted basically by Vince McMahon. But yeah, kind of a weird segment ending with a very entertaining LOD promo. They're always entertaining. They do a great job of that. The best part of the whole promo, talking about how Animal had no neck. I thought that was just fantastic. But it just went on and on, this segment.
Yeah, and a part of that we really didn't focus on, and for good reason, is that even though it was about Dude Love, we also had like an hour and 17 minutes of voiceover. Vince McMahon just talking at us. And I mean, like I said, it went on, hour and a half. But anyway, let's move past that because there's still a lot of show left here with our next match. The Godwins defeat the Headbangers and the New Blackjacks by pinfall in 5 minutes and 25 seconds in a 3-way tag team match. The Godwins, they've got different music. That was kind of strange to hear, but welcome at the same time. And they gave us commentary or production, or however you want to put it, gave us a very nice repeat view, multiple angle, slow motion breakdown of the moment that Henry Godwin broke his fucking neck on Shotgun Saturday Night. I appreciated that. Complete with freeze frame.
It was an accident.
Freeze frame of Henry's head smashed neck first into the fucking ring. There were pre-recorded promos. The one from the New Blackjacks fucking sucked. They flat out said that they're probably not the greatest tag team out there, which I agreed with.
The look that Bradshaw gave him when he said that.
Yeah. I did like the Headbangers pre-recorded promo, though. This time, usually I don't like them, but this time it was a lot more subtle in its humor than the Headbangers usually are, so I did like this one. There were a lot of rules to this match that JR had to explain. The explanation took up pretty much the entire first half of the match. I didn't pay attention to any of them, so I'm not going to repeat them, but I guess the ultimate goal of all of this is that the winner of this match is going to meet the tag champs, Austin and Dude Love, in a tag title challenge next week in Pittsburgh. And that's it. That's all I had on this. The Godwins won after using a slop bucket when the ref's back was turned. Ryan, this wasn't as bad as these multi-team matches usually tend to get, but I mean, it was still a clusterfuck. What'd you think of it?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. It was still kind of a clusterfuck, but better than what I expected. And I don't know if it was just that they had all three members from a team in the ring at the same time that just kind of made the action seem like it was more there than normal. Because most of the time when we have these three-way tag teams, they give that stupid stipulation where they could tag in anyone from any team. And it's just like, this doesn't make sense. This at least made a little bit more sense on that aspect. And then the Headbangers, they've come out in kilts before, but I think this is the first time that one came out in like a full woman's one-piece dress. So that's something to point out, especially if we have any Florida listeners, they might need to turn this off.
Oh.
I don't make the rules here. Don't blame it on me. But yeah, I think that's kind of the way, the best way to put it. There was a lot of outside chaos and a little bit too much of that, but surprisingly, I do think it was better than I expected it, and that's really the only way I could put it.
I didn't like it. I thought it was horrible. I thought the crowd was dead. The Blackjacks are so forgettable and terrible. They suck. It seems like we're getting some sort of push for the Godwins here, so I guess we'll see where that ends up. I mean, that's kind of interesting. I'm interested in seeing what happens there, but outside of that, I didn't really care for this.
Agreed on the Godwins, and I never realized how long the Blackjacks stuck around. Before we saw them here, I vaguely remembered that they existed, but I mean, they've been around for like 6 months, at least.
Yeah. I mean, we don't see them very often, but they've been around a little while,
Yeah.
Hey, call 1-900-SHAMELESS if you want to get the scoop on Psycho Sid. I love how they made sure to highlight the different numbers and different prices the fans have to pay depending on if you're in the U.S. or Canada.
Well, I mean, there's a different rate when you're talking about Monopoly money or...
I love it. I'm reigniting the old feud here, one episode at a time on Wrasslin Raw. I noticed that there was a sign in the crowd there that said, "Shawn is a bitch," just as Vince was mentioning that we're going to have Shawn Michaels. Yeah. Also, Sunny, that she came up on the screen there, they said there was going to be a final clue to that $1 million giveaway, and that's where we transitioned into the second hour, and Raw is War. When we came back, Shawn Michaels was introduced to a chorus of boos. Shawn took that opportunity to strip, with Vince roaring, "Take a look at him!" Shirtless Shawn pelvic thrusted his way down to the ring. JR was there to interview him this time because I guess Vince interviewing Shawn Michaels would have been considered indecent in Canada. Because, there would have been goozle stretching, would have been inevitable. Shawn gave the crowd a crotch chop. That was neat.
Yeah.
I have to give it to him. Shawn did a decent job of getting even more heat with various jokes. But then Shawn says that he'll be the second American in that flag match later on, with Vince roaring, "HBK in action later tonight." Shawn reminded us that he offered to get on his knees and blow Vince McMahon last week in order to get on the SummerSlam card. But there were no spots for him. So long story short here is that Shawn Michaels is going to be the special referee for the main event at SummerSlam. That's The Undertaker versus Bret Hart for the championship. How about that? And lo and behold, there's another fucking stipulation. If Shawn Michaels doesn't call the match straight down the middle, he will not be allowed to wrestle in the U.S. ever again.
What's the tagline for SummerSlam again?
Heart and soul.
Heart and soul. Feels like it should be like Summer of Stipulations or something, but all right.
Shawn, he spent the remainder of his time stripping here while we got a graphic on the screen showing Shawn Michaels and Steve Austin as two of the three challengers in that flag match later on. We then went to some more Canadian fans talking shit on America. The highlight of that one being a gentleman with the Canadian flag painted on his face. He started off his promo by saying, well, actually, I love Canada. Fucking moron.
He said he loves clean air, too, which I thought was interesting.
Who the hell loves clean air?
Well, nowadays, it's not so clean.
When they're sending all their smoke our way.
Oh, that's true. I forgot about that.
Keep on burning those forests down, Canada. Great job.
My kids have asthma now. Thanks, Canada.
Blame Canada.
We got another clue to the $1 million giveaway, the final clue. And these clues so far added up to the phrase, the key to life of luxury. The key to a life of luxury, excuse me. And that's right, folks. We had clues to a mystery ongoing, multi-weeks, up until tonight where they decided to say fuck it and just give us the answer. So we can write it on a postcard along with our names, addresses, birth dates, and social security numbers, mail them in for a casket full of cash. And that's it for this mid-match segment. Again, a lot to unpack here. Ryan, we're going to have Shawn Michaels in action against Bret Hart later tonight. What do you think of that? And also this final clue in the $1 million giveaway.
Well, I mean, Shawn Michaels versus Bret Hart, that sounds fantastic. And as we know, there's never a bait and switch, so we are guaranteed to see that later tonight, and I'm pumped.
I mean, his face was on the graphic, for God's sake.
Guaranteed.
It's guaranteed. To be honest, I thought Shawn Michaels did a really good job here. You know, he sometimes, well, I think it's drug-induced sometimes. He can come out here and kind of not do a great job, but he really got these Canadian fans to hate him. And, you know, I don't know if it's very hard for him to get these Canadian fans to hate him, but I thought he did a pretty excellent job of it. And Bartlett, one comment that he made me think of you. He said that Earl Hebner is the best referee in the WWF, but then he gave a look to Vince like you know, I'm just fucking kidding. Altogether, I thought Shawn Michaels did a really good job outside of all the flirting with Vince. The Canadians outside, this time they didn't really say anything too special here, but all around this entire episode, I loved them just throwing in these tidbits of the Canadian crowd, just shit-talking America, just, you know, good way to keep that rivalry up and going. And I laughed my ass off when they decided to just spell the entire clue out for us. Like, what the fuck was the whole point of this month-long clue bullshit thing you're doing if you're just going to give us the answer right at the end? One thing I did look up, if we want to adjust for inflation, it pretty much exactly doubles. So it's like $1,900,000 is what you would win today. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
The Shawn Michaels interview, I've never been more proud to be an American. First off, I love the loafers. The loafers with the shorts.
With the dress shorts.
Yeah.
I
love it.
The shorts that have the dress pants like folds and
Ralph
cleats.
Lauren.
Yeah, the cleats.
Calling JR Girth Brooks popped me. I love that. Just all the anti-Canada stuff. I mean, this is DX heel Shawn Michaels, which is some of the most entertaining.
Right down to the suck it motion.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where, like, we're going to see a lot of this Shawn Michaels here soon, but this is kind of like the first part of it, so it's really enjoyable to watch. And prancing around with those tiny Canada flags was fucking hilarious. And, like, stuffing them down his pants. I thought it was great. Really, really good stuff.
Yeah, I came to realize through this promo that DX Shawn Michaels is, I think, the only Shawn Michaels that I've ever really enjoyed.
It's the most entertaining version of
by
him,
far.
Yeah.
And I think at some point in this, he didn't say suck it, but he did say, like, suck me or something like that.
Probably looking right at Vince.
Yeah. He wouldn't stop doing that. He kept on gesturing at him and pointing at him and talking to him. Flirting with him, as you put it, Ryan. But it also kind of made me realize that this could kind of probably be too much Shawn Michaels even still, and that the real thing that he needs is a little bit of Triple H to like tone him down a little bit, somebody to play off of.
Yeah.
So I do look forward more and more to that, especially after this promo. Like I said, I'm getting excited about hopefully enjoying Shawn Michaels again. But speaking of, let's go to our next match. Hunter Hearst Helmsley with Chyna defeats the Patriot by countout in 3 minutes and 4 seconds. Go figure. Hunter is acting more and more degenerate in his behavior, was my first note. With some of like the gestures and affectations while he's coming down to the ring, the way that he's interacting with the fans there, a lot less bowing and a lot more slick attitude, we'll call it. After that, we got the shit-kicking fucking redneck stereotype cartoon character, the Patriot.
I'm the Patriot!
I laugh so hard every time I hear him talk.
Who, of course, comes out to Stars and Stripes Forever. I don't know that I've ever hated someone so quickly as I
was so proud to be an American like 5 minutes ago, and now I'm ashamed.
This is our first time seeing him in action here. My observations of the Patriots are that he is mechanical. He oversells when he shouldn't. He doesn't sell when he should. But, overall, none of that really lasted that long because our focus on the match ended when the Hart Foundation came down to the commentary table. All focus shifted on what was happening there. Apparently, Bret Hart was pissed off that Shawn Michaels will be the referee in his championship match at SummerSlam. I guess he had not been informed of that, or he didn't hear that part, something like that. There was still action going on in the ring here. I mean, we could hear it bumping there. We got
quote
occasional
unquote
over the shoulder. Well, yeah. Occasional views, over the shoulder of the ring shaking, that kind of thing. But then out of nowhere, oh, God, I can't believe I'm going to say it. It's getting me a little hard just talking about it. Bret Hart smacks the headset right off of Vince McMahon, and I fucking popped. God, I'm popping again sitting here.
Watch that replay over and over.
Yeah, right. JR says, get him out of here. We have a match going on. And then Bret and Vince fucking lock up. God, Vince tried to do the hockey shirt pullover move on Bret. He only got about halfway there. JR was there yelling, stop, damn it, stop. But that whole thing was too good to last. The Patriot came out to defend Vince. Ugh. That's what drew the count-out finish. There were multiple officials out to break it up, including Patterson and Briscoe. I was happy to see. And then we cut to commercial on the Hart Foundation exiting up the ramp. So that's where I decided to end this segment. Now, obviously, I'm going to be a fan of someone slapping the shit out of Vince McMahon. That's a given. But if I can try to be a little impartial and objective here, I'll just say that first, the Patriot is fucking terrible. And second, that pull apart between Vince and Bret looked great. Like, objectively, the whole thing, the official response, the way it was filmed, there was a feeling of urgency to it. Vince McMahon and Jim Ross's reactions, the fact that Jerry Lawler did not react. You heard barely a peep out of Jerry Lawler the whole time this was going on. The whole thing looked fantastic. And, I'll go one better. It looked fucking real. So, Joe, please get us going on this match and its aftermath.
Well, not much about the match because, much like you, I was popping over the little scuffle there. It's like Mr. McMahon is created and nobody knows it yet.
Yes.
The little hockey fight there was pretty good stuff. Very real and believable. And JR doing an incredible job at selling it, making it sound even more believable was really great. The other thing I noticed was, did I hear JR correctly that Helmsley is going to have a steel cage match against Mankind at SummerSlam?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's something to really look forward to. Now, I thought, well, what about Dude Love? Like, what's going on there? So maybe we'll get some answers at SummerSlam, but I'm looking forward to that because I don't remember these guys having that match.
Yeah, on the same page as you two guys, the match itself with the Patriot, just, man, is he bad. Wow. Wow. The way it started out, he took that Irish whip into the corner, and I felt embarrassed for him because here we are in Canada, home of Bret Hart and Owen Hart. And he took such a slow, pathetic, weak whip into the corner. It was just, It was fucking unacceptable. Thankfully, we go away from the match for quite a while. And then when we do come back, the Patriot gives one of the most piss poor, slow clotheslines I've seen in a long time. But thankfully back to Bret Hart and Vince McMahon, who really saved this segment. I mean, to be honest with you, the entire match between Helmsley and the Patriot is an afterthought. I don't say this often, but really, Vince McMahon stole the show here.
Yeah.
He was giving the Mr. McMahon pissed off face, and he looked legitimately angry. It came off as realistic. As you both pointed out, the way JR is calling it, he basically switched from calling commentary in the ring to commentary between Bret and Vince, and it was fantastic. So thankfully, we were able to get something great out of this piss poor match.
Yeah.
It sounds to me like you want to see the Patriot versus Brian Walsh at SummerSlam.
My goodness.
Oh my.
We'll call that the citizenship match, and that can be the stipulation at SummerSlam, is that Brian Walsh has to beat the Patriot to earn his citizenship in Rhode Island.
If he loses, we'll catapult him over the border.
He will never be allowed to work in the United States again. Well, that just makes good fucking sense.
Jeez.
I'm the Patriot.
So, just shit kicking. I know I've said that a couple times, but it's like the perfect word. Just this shit kicking dumbass.
And by all means, we love our Southern listeners, but...
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is not a broad generalization at all.
It really slaps you in the face there.
Yeah.
That accent.
It's thick and heavy.
Yeah. Especially like knowing how much Vince hated Southern accents. Like,
yeah.
I can't believe that he gave this guy some spotlight. Bret Hart got screwed twice, really. He got screwed and then he had to work with the Patriot. That's like a double screw job.
Well, after we returned from that commercial, we came back to a visibly flustered commentary table. Things were really tense there, so JR kicked it over to Paul Bearer. Most beautiful man in wrestling insisted that he is not a liar. He's got the proof there with him tonight. I guess this is going to prove that Kane is alive. The Undertaker and Kane each had half of a friendship statue. And Paul pulls out Kane's half of the statue. And I fucking popped because it's just a charred piece of wood. It was hilarious.
That'll be your other Christmas gift to make up for the Commandant figure.
A charred piece of wood.
A charred piece of wood.
On a leather strap. Yeah. This was short, but I mean, it was a significant new part of the Kane story. Joe, did you have anything on this?
I mean, it was really weird and funny, this charred piece of wood. I really liked Paul Bearer, like, yelling at Jim Ross, telling him to shut up and threatening him. I got a kick out of that.
Yeah, kind of the same. Not a ton. It's a very short segment. A little bit weird, but still, Paul Bearer has a way of delivering it that makes it work.
He can make a charred piece of wood look good.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, boy. Let's go to our next match. Goldust with Marlena defeats Farooq with Kama Mustafa by disqualification in 3 minutes and 24 seconds. Canada loves Goldust, apparently. He and Marlena both acted like giddy, happy celebrities during their entrance. I fucking hated it. We got a pre-recorded video also of Marlena talking to us, really talking to Brian Pillman. She was acting like a normal human being here instead of a mute, bizarre, mysterious, beautiful movie director, and I fucking hated it. Vince, he finally got his voice there. He clearly and calmly restates his position that Bret Hart must not have heard the stipulation. Sean was standing right there. He clearly said it. Vince was appalled at Bret's actions. Jerry Lawler was goading him on. He was taking Bret Hart's side in it, which I enjoyed. But then out of nowhere, Vince just utters a cryptic, "Oh no," with no further explanation and leaves commentary. I guess he got word that something was happening in the back. In case you didn't forget, there was a match going on here. There's nothing really to write home about. Apparently the "oh no" was because someone saw Bret Hart leaving Shawn Michaels' locker room and now Shawn is hurt. In the ring, the referee stood there and stared at Kama interfering in the match. And then he went back to arguing with Marlena about that same interference he just watched. JR, on commentary, he apologized for being unfocused in the matchup, and I then laughed as the referee called the disqualification. After Kama had plenty of time to beat up Goldust, he hands him off to Farooq. Farooq gives Goldust the Dominator. Like, Goldust could have had his career ended by the time this referee got around to calling it, but, better late than never, I suppose. And he only calls it whenever Farooq goes to pin Goldust, by the way. And that's it. Unfocused is a pretty appropriate but also kind of weak word for this. This match might not as well have even happened. Ryan, what'd you think of it?
Yeah, sadly, this was a completely forgotten match, as JR pointed out and confessed to us. They weren't going to pay attention to it, and when we did, it was bizarre for the wrong reasons. Not because of Goldust, but because the ref stared at Marlena for like a minute. Then the pin happens. Then he disqualifies Farooq for stuff he saw, like at this point, 2 minutes earlier in it was, none of it made sense. And it was just to tell us that Shawn Michaels was injured, I guess, backstage by Bret Hart. We've had a couple of these matches this episode that are just kind of there. We don't focus on them. We don't really talk about them. They just happen while other stories that are more important are focused on. So kind of odd.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, that's kind of, I guess, what comes with live television for them. That's kind of their thing now. There's something going on in the back while there's some match on that nobody cares about, I guess. Yeah, all of the weaknesses that you guys pointed out, I agree with all of it. The fact that Goldust and Marlena kind of ditched the characters, but they're still dressing up like them. And I mean, I don't know. It just really sucks. The other thing is Farooq and the Nation were doing some really good things. And then now there's like this little bit of a lull with them. So hopefully something changes for them soon, because I like Farooq. I like the Nation, and I want them to be doing something more relevant. So another great sign in the crowd was Linda McMahon is hot sign.
I didn't catch that one.
Yeah.
Surprised Vince didn't have that one blared out.
Yeah. Well, so keep in mind, guys, we do have a flag match tonight, but we got some really bad news here. It seems like Shawn Michaels will not be taking part in it. We will not get Shawn Michaels in the ring with Bret Hart tonight. Who would have thought?
Are you telling me there was a bait and switch?
I don't know what you're talking about. Shawn Michaels was never in this match.
Oh, you're right. We've always been at war with Eurasia.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a Mandela effect on us there.
As part of the lead up to things, we got some more pre-recorded ignorant Canadian fans, including another completely different guy with his face painted like the Canadian flag. That just made me think of Putty on Seinfeld going to the hockey game.
Oh, the Devils. Yeah.
Oh, he's a face painter.
Go Devils!
Maybe Putty will be at SummerSlam in East Rutherford.
He could be, wearing that infamous jacket.
Mm-hmm.
That was followed by footage of Shawn Michaels in the dressing room throwing a hissy fit about the ongoing harassment from Bret Hart. Shawn was there stumbling around, shirtless, pants half unbuckled, stammering and slurring his words. No word on where Dave Hebner was, but Vince was there to get an eyeful of it, and he enjoyed every second of it. This was short but significant. Ryan, what did you think of this candid footage of Shawn Michaels we got here?
I didn't understand why you tell us earlier in the day that he's going to be in this match. He comes out and talks to us, gets the crowd good and riled up, and then you pull him away. I don't know. I didn't like it. I think it gives you blue balls. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's not a good thing.
Yeah.
Vince is tired of being the only one.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, Vince and Shawn are going to need some couples counseling after this. Shawn was really yelling at him there, so I'm a little concerned.
All right, guys, let's get to this main event here. Our final match of the night. The Hart Foundation, Bret Owen and the British Bulldog defeat Dude Love, Stone Cold Steve Austin, and The Undertaker in a 6-man tag team flag match in 13 minutes. So I guess the way you win this is to capture your own country's flag or until TV time runs out. I don't know why, but all I could think of during this was Judy Bagwell on a forklift.
Yeah, this had to be Vince Russo.
Yeah.
booked.
I just, the setup there in the ring, it looked terrible. But before the action happens, Brett got on the mic. He said that he won't go on until he hears the greatest national anthem on the face of the earth. I got deja vu all over again. You know, I was expecting a run in. It did not happen, but it was still a great, great thing. This crowd actually sung along, unlike the last Canadian crowd that he did this with. But then also, again, unlike last time, there was no interruption until it was all said and done. And then Stone Cold and then Dude Love came out and got this match going. When the Hart Foundation cleared the ring within the first 30 seconds of the match, I was like, why aren't they climbing up and grabbing the flag? And then it just, you know, things kept going from there. In what I thought was great timing, we went to commercial just as The Undertaker's bell was tolling. So we did not get to see what kind of crowd reaction Taker got, or really any kind of information about The Undertaker being in this match at all. He was just not there and then there. Nothing even of him accepting the challenge. Shortly after that, I loved The Undertaker going for a pinfall rather than the flag. I also loved how there was zero talk about how The Undertaker was teaming with his mortal enemy Mankind here. Zero. No mention of that at all.
No, that's Dude Love.
Yeah, what are you talking about?
Right, but anyway, we'll keep it moving.
The real boy toy.
Exactly.
This match kept up like that. Most of the action felt like it was killing time instead of trying to win. Even commentary, like it felt like JR was trying to carry us through to the end rather than call the action. We got another commercial break. In this one, we got that same SummerSlam commercial. We devoted all of the time in the world to getting this damn SummerSlam commercial, and then came back to the match still going on. Oh yeah, by the way, back in the ring, we were sitting in holds whenever we came back from that. You know, even when Austin and Brett were together, it was kind of slow and clumsy, like they didn't really have it planned out. Not planned out, but like just, I don't know, there wasn't a lot going on, but the fact that there wasn't a lot going on with this many people, it really stood out to me. Even with Brett and Austin, again, like two people that really know how to make some interesting, intriguing moments happen together. It just wasn't there. But just as I was typing that last note, Dude Love hit Bret Hart on the outside like a fucking freight train. That was a good hit. Even Jerry Lawler ended up calling him, you know, getting hit like a freight train. That was a good thing in this match, probably the only one. I guess someone yelled to go home because Brett and Undertaker both just started climbing the corners out of nowhere. But Brian Pillman came in to slow down the Undertaker by grabbing his ankle, you know, gripping him, pulling him down, giving Brett the time to grab the Canadian flag and get the win. The Hart Foundation exited through the ring. Steve Austin was left looking like he was glad it was all over, and we faded to black. I tried to make my feelings on this match clear in my description there, so we'll just leave it at that. Joe, what'd you think about this match and the way that Raw ended tonight?
I guess looking at the big picture of this show, it's like they booked the gimmick just to give us a bait and switch, which kind of bothers me. This is not a necessary gimmick at all. Not sure why, again, outside of the Shawn Michaels bait and switch, they would book this, but hey, whatever. I think that they still sort of gave the live crowd something here, just because, you know, you are getting to see Stone Cold Steve Austin, Dude Love, Undertaker, and all of your Canadian heroes here, including Bret Hart. When Bret Hart was involved in the match, it kind of picked up, but like you said, Bartlett, it wasn't enough. It was sloppy at times for some reason, this whole thing. Maybe they felt rushed, I don't know, but Pillman interrupting from under the ring, I thought that was kind of nice because I just didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
It's like one of those things where it should be predictable, but it wasn't. I thought that was well done. The other thing I thought that was pretty good was JR closing out the show. If I remember correctly, Vince was still not back on commentary.
Yeah.
So JR closing this out, he said, Austin is pissed. You know, that was just a great line at the end of the show. He's losing his voice. It's the classic JR. So that was, I guess, the one really good thing out of this. But outside of that, yeah, the gimmick match was just not very entertaining, I don't think.
Yeah, I'd agree. Going into it, you see everyone involved and it's heavy on the star power. And I do think the crowd probably got their money's worth and were happy to see all these guys here. But everything about it was just a little bit off. The gimmick to begin with just didn't make much sense. As I stated earlier, I kind of thought it was going to be capture the flag. Instead, it's go collect your own flag. And at times, kind of like cage matches, you were just like, go for the flag, go grab it. And other things that just seemed off was every involvement of The Undertaker. We completely miss his entire entrance. Then later we go to break when he's going to come in the ring, and it's like we barely see The Undertaker in there. It was almost like it was put up to guard us viewing anything The Undertaker was going to do. And I'm not going to say that any of the guys did a bad job here. It was just kind of a disappointment with the star power involved with the outcome. And I would agree, Joe, the ending with Pillman, although I guess predictable in that Pillman would be involved, the style in which it was done right, and Pillman did it well. So I'll give that props, but overall, I would have really thought we would have got more out of who was involved in this match, and we didn't. And that's what's disappointing.
Yeah, that's a really great way to put it, and I think I'll take that as the pin in this episode. As I said, we faded to black, so let's take it on over to highlights and lowlights. Joe, why don't you take that first?
So my highlight, I guess it's a couple things, but I guess I want to highlight the Shawn Michaels interview. In particular, the real heat that's forming. Like, we're in the thick of Shawn versus Brett rivalry here.
Yeah.
And it's coming off in front of the crowds now. Like, it's showing there's real heat there, with this Canadian crowd. So I like that. My low light is going to be that triple threat tag team match, because I feel like a triple threat match, because it's so rare at this time, it should be something that's like kind of a big deal, but this was just kind of thrown in there with shitty tag teams, I guess.
Yeah, that was a number one contender match.
Yeah.
Yep. It sucked.
My highlight, I'm going to go with Vince and Bret Hart, and in getting hints of Mr. McMahon. Just their entire interaction there, that little fight, and JR putting the cherry on the top. That's my highlight. A low light is going to be the Brian Walsh, Brian Christopher match, I guess. It was all around piss poor, and Brian Walsh is not a good wrestler.
My highlights, the whole thing was great, but specifically the exact moment that Bret Hart slapped the headset off of Vince McMahon. That was my highlight. It's something I've wanted to do many times. My low lights, this was a really hard one for me, because I was really tempted to say just like the entire rest of the episode, but I ended up going with the stupid fucking flag match gimmick. Like, it's like the stupid stipulations. Like, we don't need this shit at all. And I have a follow-up question for you, Joe, after I'm done with this. But I also wanted to say that, Joe, you brought up a really good point with the whole fact
Vince Russo.
Well, no, not Vince Russo. But the fact that they had to have planned for Shawn to not be in this. So that means that they had to take match time away from somebody so that he could come out and strip for Vince and say that he's in the match. They had to take the time and energy to go backstage to film him in the locker room. They had to come up with, like, they had to waste all of these resources on something that was never going to happen to begin with.
Yeah.
So, that was a fantastic point. And that, if it wasn't for his promo being as good as it was, I would maybe consider that my low light. But Joe, I wanted to ask you something, because you're much more well versed on WCW than I am, and I'm gonna say Ryan too, probably.
Yeah, I would guess.
During this whole 83 weeks period, you got me thinking with a comment that you made earlier that we're almost to the point where we're ignoring matches. All of the storytelling is happening backstage in the locker room, and I completely agree with that. And that also bears out with the amount of matches that we've been having and the time spent in them. With these 2-hour episodes, I dare say that we have not had an episode yet that had more than like 35 minutes total of match time in it out of the 2 hours. So, I mean, it looks like the WWF at this point during the 83 weeks is trying to focus more on storytelling, and the wrestling is just a side note or it's background noise. Whenever WCW was winning this thing, were they keeping the wrestling just as, like, up front? Like, did it stay about wrestling, but that also had storytelling? Whereas the WWF is like, it's all about the sports entertainment here.
Yeah, I'd say the only thing that was not, that was hard storytelling, there was no wrestling involved, was the whole Sting storyline.
Okay.
But during this time, you had Dennis Rodman come in and wrestle a match. You had a feud of the year between Diamond Dallas Page and Macho Man during this time period too. And those were all, I mean, they had several matches. The NWO stuff, you had Lex Luger beating Hulk Hogan for the first time since Hogan won the belt. So, I mean, there's a lot of wrestling driven storylines. Like I said, the only thing was probably the Sting stuff that wasn't.
Like I said, it feels like the wrestling is an afterthought.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, Joe, do you have any contemporary wrestling news from on and around July 21st, 1997 for us?
Yeah, I hinted at it a couple, either last week or the week before. Dave Meltzer is saying that starting in September, Monday Night Raw will no longer be live every Monday.
Yeah.
And in addition to that, the In Your House concept will be dropped, and WWF pay-per-views will all be longer shows at 3 hours and $29.95 price tag. So the cheaper, shorter pay-per-views appear to be over now moving forward, according to Dave. The change in the Monday night format is mostly due to budgetary cost-cutting reasons. So it's just costing the WWF too much money. ECW filed a lawsuit with WCW regarding a number of issues, including Raven and Stevie Richards appearing at the Bash at the Beach pay-per-view show in July for WCW. Apparently, WCW did not wait for those two guys for their ECW contracts to expire before putting them on TV.
That sounds like Bischoff.
Yeah. Well, we mentioned Sid.
Yeah.
You don't have to pay the 1-900 Shameless,
Nice.
but you do have to pay Dave Meltzer and the Wrestling Observer to find out that Sid had an anxiety attack backstage when he showed up to Raw a couple weeks ago. He was telling his friends that he thought he was having a heart attack. He is also still dealing with a neck and back injury. So Sid's a mess right now, and I don't know if we're going to see him anytime soon. And that is all.
Thank you, Joseph. Illuminating as always. And that's it, folks. We are done with this one. I want to thank you again for joining us. If you like what we're doing here and want to connect with us, you can email us at WRASSLINRAW. Just add @gmail.com to the end of that to submit questions or comments. Check us out on social media, except for fucking Twitter, because don't forget we're going to delete that bitch here pretty soon.
Delete!
And on every podcast subscription platform. While you're there, don't forget to follow and subscribe to get every episode of Wrasslin Raw coming to you every week. Give us a 5-star review and tell all of your friends to tune in to the most one-of-a-kind Monday Night Raw review podcast on the airwaves. Next week on Wrasslin Raw, we're going to take a look at the Raw that aired on July 28th, 1997, with matches featuring Ace Darling, the Truth Commission, and many more. So, for Joe and Ryan, I'm Jason, and this has been Wrasslin Raw.